Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Fighters, Coaches, and Fathers. And I'm absolutely excited to talk to my friend Cleveland Bentley. Cleveland, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, before we get into the story, because we were doing this last week, and you said, hey, man, I got to go do something here. I'm in Vegas, and I'm going to go to the UFC Institute. And I'm like, what is the UFC Institute? And I'm like,
Oh,
talk
wow.
to me a little bit about, before we get into it, what that is, what that experience was like.
So the UFC Institute is pretty much like a pampering for UFC fighters. They get free meal prep, free nutritionist, free physiotherapy, free recovery rooms, and they have free strength and conditioning coaches. So they're pretty much pampered. So, when I first came to it, I couldn't believe it. It was like an adult playground. I just wanted to jump into it and see what it's all about. But with Sarah, I'm just like her recording device. I just listen to everything as much as possible for her because she's learning herself. Yeah, it's been a ride there.
So the Institute sounds like what Olympic athletes may get.
It's very similar.
Is that something? So are there things to help you with training as well?
Oh, big time. Like there's some things I'm restricted to that I'm not allowed to use, but I'm allowed to use the ice baths, the hot tubs. There's like these compression machines called Normatec. They like squeeze your body and stretch you out before training. And there's a lot of stuff to help you recover. I'm learning lots from the nutritionists. They always have a different perspective of dieting for fighters, and they're learning themselves. They gave me a good perspective of like how baseball is so formed now because I don't know how long baseball's been around, 100 years or so, and they know how to train baseball players now, and they're trying to figure out the way for MMA fighters now, and that's their goal.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing experience and a really cool thing to look at. But thanks for sharing that, and hopefully one day maybe I'll be able to sneak in there too as well.
Yeah, come down. I'll show you around.
Awesome. And congratulations on your last win at XFFC 18. Josh Kidakowski, I believe is the way you say his name. You took that fight on short notice. Talk to me a little bit about that fight.
I just thought it was a good matchup for me. I haven't fought in about 2 years since the Adam Wayne fight in Regina. I was just in shape. I'm usually always in shape. I rarely take time off. And yeah, I just thought it was a good matchup. He's a really good striker. I thought I could handle him with my full MMA game, despite the fight being mostly on the feet. And he's a tough kid. I hit him with everything I had. I hurt my hand really bad on the skull every round. And yeah, he's stuck in there. That kid's tough.
Awesome. And you've got a fight coming up October 5th back home here, correct?
Yes, sir. Langley, BC. It's called Mamba Fight Night 5 against Gagan Gill, I believe his name is.
Sweet. Well, hopefully we'll get out there to check that one out, and best of luck on it. But before we talk more about the present and the future, let's talk a little bit about Cleveland Bentley, the past, and sort of your family, your parents, and growing up.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm half Filipino and half Canadian. My dad was born in Alberta and Peace River, so I'm his second generation family. My dad would have been 90 years old this year, so there's quite a difference there. And my mom is from the Philippines in a place called Ozambi City, and she's back at home in Canada and just living the dream there. But where I grew up was in the shoe swap. You know where the shoe swap is, like by Kamloops.
Yeah, everybody's done the boat cruises once in a while, right? And the shoe swaps, and either they do it every year or they never go back. That's sort of such a great party.
Exactly, yeah. But I grew up on the beaches there in a place called Squilax. It's about 2 hours from Kamloops, BC. And I'm a forest boy. I grew up on the reserve and all with those kind of tough guys, and had a lot of experiences in that area.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about growing up on a reserve. As you know, I mean, I was born in Peterborough, Ontario, but I consider Saskatchewan my home. And always we live. My uncle had a farm in Star City, Saskatchewan. I'd always drive to our cabin, which would be through the reserves. And man, that's some tough living, and there's some really tough kids on the reserve. Does it sort of turn you into a certain type of person?
I'd say just more reckless. Like I was friends with all those kind of crazy guys, so I just went along with whatever they did. Like I did grow up with a lot of bullying and stuff, being the small, half Asian little kid. I was always the tiny one, so growing up with them and just having some confidence, doing reckless stuff all the time was, I don't know. It makes fighting almost second nature. I'd never really seen the danger in it, so it's always just fun to me.
Nice. Talk to me about now your journey into martial arts.
Oh yeah. So when I grew up, I was super into like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and eventually Jet Li and stuff like that. So I was always into martial arts and wanting to be a ninja as a kid. I remember like when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I was trying to like climb a tree as quickly as possible and stalk my brother at nighttime in the middle of the forest. And I just always wanted to be like a weird little ninja like that. And then I got into like Japanese called anime. I got into a lot of stuff like that and practiced a lot of moves from shows I always watched. So I was always in martial arts. It just never stopped. When I finally moved to Kelowna, BC, I saw Muay Thai, which was the only Muay Thai place in Kelowna in the Yellow Pages, and that was Toshido Mixed Martial Arts, and that was my home from 15 onward.
Wow. So does your brother have like throwing star injuries or nunchuck hits, or like you're stalking your brother as a ninja? He's still alive, isn't he? I don't.
He's still alive. He actually lives in Vancouver right now. But yeah, I do have one story where I threw not a pitchfork, like a 2-prong barbecue skewer from afar and hit him right in the back of the knee. And I regret that. He hates that story to this day.
And then that's when you started your journey into martial arts after realizing you had the skill of throwing the barbecue fork into your brother's.
Oh yeah. I didn't think that would stick, but it stuck.
He walks for a limp forever now.
Oh, yeah.
So Toshido and David Lee, fantastic. So since you're 14 or 15 training there, talk to me about meeting him and starting to train Muay Thai.
Oh, it was a really intimidating gym. Like my first 2 days showing up there, I just sat on a chair watching because I didn't know. I've never been to a martial arts gym or seen what it's like. So just practicing at home and then jumping into the real thing was really intimidating. But Dave and the other coach at the time was Vince the Rocket Ross. He's a champion kickboxer. They invited me with open arms. They saw some potential in me, and I just loved it from then on. Even when I had a hiatus playing music and stuff like that for like 2 years, I still in the back of my head, I just like regret going through the hiatus. I wanted to go back into the gym. So
understood. So talk to me about that hiatus. How old were you and what type of music were you playing?
So about like 17 to about 19, I played a lot of death metal and punk music, and I toured across Canada and back a lot. Made it quite successful. I got signed to one label in one of my punk bands, but it got too reckless, a lot of partying, and I just felt no discipline in my life. It was just chaos. So a lot of fun at the time, but it was chaos.
Interesting. What was the name of your band?
Oh, there's several bands. There was my first band was called The Streaks, and I was a little long-haired punk. And then my metal band was called Fear Conspiracy. And then my punk band was called Drown Out, and that was the most successful one. But yeah, those are some crazy times.
Were you the lead singer, or do you play an instrument?
Oh, I play a little bit of everything. I filled in for drums for some bands. I play lead guitar, backup guitar. I've done the death metal scream. I've also played like R&B and R&B singing and stuff like that.
What?
So, yeah.
What? That's awesome. One of the things that I realized when I was actually in Thailand about the Filipino culture is that we walked into an Irish bar in I'm not sure exactly where we were. We were in so many different towns in Thailand.
Mhm.
And we walked in there, and there were two sisters, tiny little girls, singing like everything from Journey to Filipino sisters to punk rock to everything. And the culture of song in the Filipino culture is amazing because we were like, "Hey, are you from Thailand?" Like, no, everybody in the Philippines sings. That's true, right?
It's very true. They won't have any English education and they'll remember a full English song, no problem. Karaoke and just singing in general is a huge I don't even know what to call it. Like I guess a fad, but they're obsessed with singing over there. My mom herself, I remember like growing up, the house parties were all about karaoke. She had the most expensive karaoke machine and she just go balls out with Mariah Carey.
That's amazing, and it does, like every Filipino I've ever known can sing, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like not just like I think the only song I do if ever I get called up on stage at karaoke is just a gigolo because all you can do is talk it, right?
Perfect. There you
Just a
go.
gigolo, and everywhere I go, so that's
Yeah.
easy. There's no
Perfect.
stretch on it, but that's awesome that was there. So you do your hiatus, you get signed, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to live very long if I decide to do that. Let me do something that's easy, go back to Toshido and start really rolling with it.
Yeah.
So you start training there with David and Vince and those guys. How do you move into your first your amateur career and then into your pro career?
I just stuck with it. I was pretty stubborn about training. Like no matter how my body felt, how like I remember concussions when I was coming back to training for my amateur fights, and I just always trained 3 to 6 hours a day, no problem. I don't know what I was thinking back then, but I was able to handle it, no problem. And Dave
Wow.
one day just said, "Yeah, you're ready to fight." I always showed up to fight team training, and I got my ass kicked about 90% of the time, but I just gave it my all, no matter what.
The one thing that I've always noticed about Toshido is David's really, really good. He's really, really nice. And the training's obviously changed from when you first got there. It's a little bit more, hey, let's I mean, if you're coming in to be a fighter, that's one thing. But hey, if you want to build a business and teach anti-bullying and jiu-jitsu to kids, it's a little bit different. But we've always known that Dave knows how to create champions, and with the guys like Rory McDonald and Michael Hill and those guys. So it's cool to see that. How have you seen that club change over time?
Well, we definitely used to be more. Do you know like the Shudo style of training? It's just like balls to the walls. Like we try to simulate training like 90%.
Yeah.
That's how we used to be. It was very like we try to replicate fighting as close as possible, and it didn't suck at the time, but eventually, like when I got past 25 years old, I didn't like the feelings going home at night. But now it's more about like drilling and more software work rather than just pounding all the time.
Yeah, it's good to hear. And we could see your ability to endure and to survive when you're in your fight with at Saturday Night Fights 12 with Adam Wayne. It was amazing. And I think I really started to understand your nickname in that fight, which is the River Trout. But tell me how that came about.
So yeah, like Dave made a move off me called the river trout technique. When people mount me, I just kind of like squirm my legs and it looks like I'm flopping like a fish a bit. But the name is mostly about just me having so much energy. I just don't stop moving. I never I never panic, but I'm able to squirm out of tight techniques all the time just to stay calm and always keep moving. People find me really annoying, to be honest.
Yeah, no, you're it is whenever we see you're grappling and it's like you cannot be held down and it's exciting, especially for people that are working underhooks and trying to get position, and big guys probably hate it even more because you're at 20 pounds heavier than you and you're still getting away from it.
Exactly.
So it's yeah, it's cool to watch. Now, you're also engaged to UFC fighter, which you talked a little bit about, Sarah Moras. How did you guys meet?
So I met her at Toshido, like she just showed up randomly one day, and I think it was around summertime, 4.5 years ago. She just showed up, and she always never gave a shit about how people treated her. She just beat dudes up. Like I remember her kicking one of our 205ers in the eye, and his eye was like blood red one day, and I was just like, yeah, that's awesome. But me and her have always clicked. We were always really good friends. We talk every day, even when I'm at work. We're always like, texting each other all the time. And then one summer, we as friends, we decided to go on a vacation to Mexico for like a 2.5 day trip, and we didn't come back friends after that. So yeah, we've always been so connected to each other. We understand each other with training, with nutrition, with the harsh realities of weight cutting and stuff like that. She's always there for me. I'm dying in the bathtub, but she flops me out of the bathtub like Free Willy, and I just love that about her. She's amazing.
That's great. So you meet her in class. It's love at first sight as she kicks a 205er in the eye and injures him. You're probably like, oh, I want to be friends with this girl at the very least. You go to Mexico, and you come back a little closer than friends. Man, and you're both fighters. She's the UFC. She was in Tough, the Ultimate Fighter. She had one submission of the series, of the season, I think, as well there. But relationships are tough enough, man. How do you make it work, and what are some of the struggles that are different with fighters outside of weight cutting?
Just the ups and downs. Like one of us will have a good day of training, or one of us will have a bad day of training, and we have to kind of find a middle ground of not just being so excited and boasting in front of each other's faces about beating someone up that day or getting beat up, or like the weight cutting part. It's really hard seeing Sarah like cut weight and her face is all gaunt, her skin's getting whiter. I'm like, I'm trying to keep her positive, but it's scary to watch sometimes. And vice versa for me. I look like crap when I cut weight.
Well, I mean, you look at anybody that drops, and now you have to have the advantage, 15 to 30 pounds. If you get anybody dropping 20 pounds in water weight, I mean, if you didn't know they're a fighter, you'd be like, oh, you're a ghost. You're the ghost of this person. Like they're kind of a different shell of themselves. Why is it so important to cut that amount of weight and then to get in the ring and rehydrate, Cleveland?
I don't know if it's so important. It just seems like it's tradition since the early days of fighting. Like boxing has weight cuts, and wrestling too is always weight cuts. So I think the only importance is that energy management and weight cutting. People cutting so much water weight that they're not the same person the next day or the next day after. They're more risk of concussion as well. With a dehydrated brain, their performance is going to be way worse if they're dehydrating themselves so much. So I think dieting as much as you can and being recovered while dieting at the same time is really, really important for your performance during fight night, mentally and physically.
Any advice for fighters going up in terms of how to recover rapidly? And you don't have to give me all your secrets because I know there may be some. But I always see guys right after weigh-ins drinking the electrolytes and sipping it really slow. Now I want to try to do it quickly. And then when they have their after the weight cut meal, I've seen guys make the mistake of ordering the Cajun chicken versus the regular chicken. And if you've ever done that, your taste buds explode after that thing. And you're like, this Cajun chicken's burning my mouth. I can't even eat it, which doesn't make any sense. Any other secrets that you've learned for recovery after the weight cut?
Everyone has their own little secrets and stuff, but for me, it's just carbs and water. I think carbs are like a sponge. So I have like a carb drink and water back to back every few hours. Like you should be recovering with a schedule after your weigh-ins. You should have light stuff, light water, a little bit of carbs, no solids yet, and then work your way up to solids later throughout the day. That's what I believe, at least. But everyone has their own little scientific way of doing it. Yeah.
No, I hear you. This podcast podcast is always about fighters, coaches, and fathers, and I'm always interested in the past and what drove you to be a fighter. And you've talked a little bit about that, but I also think that there's often things that family instills in people in order for them to move forward. What's one of the greatest or most useful lessons you've learned from your family?
Just like never give up and just hard work, pretty much the cliche kind of thing. But yeah, just watching my mother and father work tirelessly every day just for me and my brother, like it really drove me to believe that the body mentally and physically can just keep going and keep going with unlimited willpower. Like if you really believe you have unlimited willpower, you can always give a little more despite how tired and wrecked you are.
And we've talked about that before when in interviews, in unlimited willpower. Is that something that you've always sort of believed, or is it a belief that you've created over time?
For myself, it's a belief I've created over time, especially in the gym. Like I've learned to deal with uncomfortable situations and, like being in deep submissions or arms about to break. And I'm just, keeping my calm, breathing through it. Like a choke isn't that deep. So just chill out and let them gas his arm, like those kind of situations. And being bullied as a kid, I learned to just be patient and give the beating when the time is right.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. The first time I ever heard someone talk about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations was Madonna's husband, or the film producer Guy Ritchie, who used to be, and he was doing jiu-jitsu, and he was like, "That's the real secret," and it's kind of a secret to life, because I think that, guess what? You're always going to be put in certain situations that you're uncomfortable with. And a lot of times we'll talk to fighters and they kind of agree to this. You don't really rise to the occasion when you're called upon. You default to your worst day of training. So if your worst day of training was good, you do well. But if it isn't, and you think, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it, sometimes it just doesn't work out. How do you make sure that you elevate that level of performance when you're fighting?
Well, first of all, I never make sure of anything. I accept everything that happens that fight day because there's nothing you can change about it. In the moment, you have to accept what's going on. All the nerves of, if you're thinking about a crowd being judgmental and stuff, you have to just let it go, completely let it go. And that's really helped me on fight nights, just relaxing and accepting everything that happens, embracing it all, just taking all. If it's hate or love, just take it all in.
That's awesome. That reminds me of sort of that Chael Sonnen or WW World Wrestling Federation guys that were always like, people, oh, I hate that guy. But it was always about the crowd reaction and being able to harness that energy into something that would make them perform, or they wouldn't feel bad. They'd feel, hey, look at the attention I'm getting, whether it's positive or negative.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've got a fight coming up in less than a month with Gagan Gill. What can we expect in that fight, Cleveland?
Oh, a lot different than my last one, that's for sure. My last one that I took on 2 weeks' notice, I felt so slow and sluggish, and I don't know. I didn't have time for any sparring or anything, so I just jumped in the fight and stayed in shape. This one is going to be much different. I've been training really consistently and really hard with all these new training partners at Xtreme Couture in Vegas. There's so many different leagues of fighters coming in every day. I don't know who to expect every day, so it's amazing to have all these killers to work with, and I'm in such an uncomfortable place for myself that it's going to be incredibly comfortable October 5th.
That's amazing. Anybody that we would know in terms of who you're training with or who you're running into in Vegas?
Yeah, I've been training. Jeremy Kennedy is one of the guys who been down there. The other guys are more a lower level league, so we probably wouldn't know them. But there's Sean Francis, there's Iron Horsley. There's lots of guys down here that I just love training with, and the other people I really don't know. I try to pick strangers. I want to spar guys I don't know. I just want the uncomfortability.
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, I train kickboxing, and when I'd be at infighting with Richie Yip in Vancouver, and I'd always want my same partner. You know, whether we're hitting pads and we're doing this, but you don't improve if you take the same partner, do you?
No. Especially you recognize the same style over and over again. What they're gonna do with their jab, what they're gonna do with their setups, their takedowns, their grappling. It becomes kind of repetitive. So seeing how a person moves is really important to me. I believe training your eyes is more important than anything else. And then in the fight, you can kind of relax your eyes and just let the autopilot take over. So yeah, that's how I think it is.
Is there a significant? I mean, Toshido's fantastic. David Leeds great. They're getting ready for Musasi, Rory McDonald coming up. Is there any significant difference when you travel to world-class clubs like from Toshido to Vegas in how things are done?
The structure is always a little bit different, but the way sparring and like conditioning and the way the drilling is always the kind of the same. And there's always the same kind of people. There's always the big dog of the gym, and you'll notice who he is as soon as you walk in. It's almost always the same, but the structure of how the coaches do the classes and stuff are always a little bit different.
Perfect. Well, Cleveland, it's been great to talk to you. I'm excited to see where Sarah ends up in her next fight and yourself on October 5th back home here. Thanks for taking the time. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way of them to do that and follow you and that type of thing?
Yeah, my Instagram is cleveland.bentley, and that's what I usually use, or Cleveland Bentley on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, my friend. Good luck October 5th, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye. Bye. Hey, guys. Thanks for your support of fighters, coaches, and fathers. If you haven't yet subscribed, click the left button on the left, and to watch Cleveland Bentley and Adam Wayne's epic battle from Saturday Night Fights, click on the right. Enjoy.